Shane Steichen is literally in Indy right this moment, signing his deal and getting ready to become the next head coach for the Indianapolis Colts. But who's he going to bring along with him? Who's going to be on that staff coaching the Indianapolis Colts with him? Well, we're going to talk about it tonight. Welcome to the Horseshoe Huddle podcast presented by Fan Nation on SI.com. My name is Andrew Moore, and I'm joined by my co-host and fellow writer at Horseshoe Huddle, Drake Wally. Drake, the Super Bowl has come and passed. Both you and I enjoyed plenty of adult beverages yesterday after the news broke that the Colts were targeting Shane Steichen for the head coaching position. But how you doing, man? How was your Super Bowl Sunday? Did you enjoy the game? Let's talk about your experience.
I thought the game was amazing. There was one mishap. I asked my wonderful girlfriend to toss me a Bud Light, and didn't exactly catch it, so it hit me in the face. But other than that, good thing I'm not getting recruited to the Colts to play wide receiver. But look, at the end of the day, we got to see Shane Steichen go out there on the biggest stage and put on a show. I mean, his quarterback who couldn't throw, couldn't do this, couldn't do that. Boy, he sure looked to me like he could do every single dang thing out there. So what a heck of a game, great weekend, and very happy that Shane Steichen is physically in Indianapolis. And I think it's only moments away before it's official. So feeling good.
I don't know if it's your lack of hands or Aubrey's just got a laser rocket
got
arm.
A cannon.
firing those BLs in there. Hey, maybe the Colts should give her a call.
It was underhanded though, so it's not really her fault.
Hey, but yeah, it was a very good game. And we'll talk about that at the end of the episode. We've already got people in the chat ready to talk about these staff options. Nathan, good to see you saying Pep Hamilton for offensive coordinator. Stats Matt, the third member of our show, and a guy that I put has a job tonight. He's going to be watching just to make sure the Colts, if they do announce that Steichen has signed, Stats Matt is going to let me know so we could talk about it. He says Pep for QB coach, not for offensive coordinator. Instead, Patullo for offensive coordinator. We've got Steve in the chat here. What an awesome day. Quentin, he says, I'm glad that we got somebody. And I think everybody shares your sentiment, Quentin. But hey, before we get started, you know what we got to talk about. You guys have been killing it. Subscriber numbers are going through the roof. We passed 600 subscribers today. So thank you very much. We're still on the road to 1,000. If you want to see the Chrome Dome, if you want to see this bald head, get it to over 1,000 subscribers. So to do that, go ahead and follow and like us on all the things. Go ahead and like Horseshoe Huddle on Facebook. Go ahead and follow at Colts on FN on Twitter. And of course, subscribe to that YouTube channel. Hit the bell so you know whenever Drake and I are going live, so you know whenever Destin and Shot are going live, because the Saddle Up podcast is going to be coming to the channel.
That's right.
You're not going to want to miss any of that. So Drake, let's dive in. And before we talk about some of the staffing options, I thought it would be fun, now that the hiring process is not officially over, but it really is over. Let's go ahead and talk about the Colts head coaching hiring process. And a lot of this information that I'm going to give was put out by Albert Breer of Sports Illustrated today. Had an excellent piece. Go ahead and check out his column. But it was just very interesting because I know a lot of people, a lot of fans wanted to know, why was this search taking so long? What was all going on behind the scenes? We heard about these 12-hour interviews, but what could you possibly cover within those 12 hours? So I'm going to go through it real quick for you guys, and we're going to talk about exactly what happened in these head coaching interviews, because it's really kind of interesting to see how it all went down. So the process did start with all the first round candidates, 13 or 14 of them, going through 4-hour Zoom interviews. And the people on those Zoom calls were, of course, General Manager Chris Ballard, Assistant General Manager Ed Dodds, Vice Chair Carly Ursay Gordon, Jim Irsay's daughter, Director of Team Development Bryant Decker, HR Chief Jasmine Park, and then the Colts President Pete Ward. And all of those interviews were pretty standard. So this was kind of the original interviews kind of vetting out process. But then when you move on to the second round, which got narrowed down to 8 different candidates, all of those second round interviews were done in person. Whether it was at the Colts facility or in Shane Steichen's instance, the Colts flew out to Philadelphia since he was preparing for the Super Bowl and conducted that interview in Philly. But they were all done in person, and it started with all the other employees or the members of the Colts organization that I mentioned before. But this one also included Matt Conti, who is the chief PR person for the Colts. And then the candidates met with a bunch of different departments within the Colts as they were there, such as the training facility, or the training staff, I should say, strength and conditioning. Some even requested to meet with the scouts and some of the front office personnel. So they met with really everybody and spent different time with each. And the thing about the search committee is they were in those meetings with them, kind of sitting back and watching, kind of seeing how these candidates interacted with the various groups within the organization. And then you move on to what was probably the biggest part of this interview process. The candidates met with Jim Irsay. Now, Irsay stayed out of that first round of interviews per se. He really didn't interact with them until the second round started, and he spent a lot of time one-on-one with these candidates in round two. And some of those one-on-ones lasted up to 4 hours of these candidates with Jim Irsay. So Irsay really wanted to know what these candidates were about and how these candidates would interact with the owner, what made them tick, what they would do to change what they would bring to the organization, some things that they might want to change, give Irsay some ideas there. But that was really big. A big part of this interview process was spending that time one-on-one with Jim Irsay. And this was one of the more interesting parts that Breer laid out. And it's that each candidate, well, I said they had kind of hung out and met with the strength and conditioning staff, the training staff. They met one-on-one with George Lee, the senior football strategy analyst for the Colts. And they really went over a lot of game management and analytical situations with each candidate. So George Lee would put situations up on tape, and each candidate would go through them with the rest of the group watching, kind of detailing what they would do in this instance, whether they, like, say it was a 4th and 1 at the team's plus 46-yard line, or a 4th and 5 or something. Do you go for it? What's the different situations? Really deep diving into what these coaches would be thinking in these situations. And some of those they even tried to make timed to kind of simulate a real game, which I've never really heard about that in a head coaching interview before. And it's something that really, really stood out to me. But really, Breer said that all the candidates that he spoke to really enjoyed the interview process for the Indianapolis Colts. So when Chris Ballard said it was going to be a very thorough head coaching search and they were going to do a deep dive on every single one of these candidates throughout these very long interviews, he certainly meant it. So I know that was a really long-winded story right there, but that's kind of what the interview process was like. So Drake, after hearing all of that, what are your thoughts on the Colts head coaching interview process and kind of what stood out to you now that we look back on it as it's nearing its conclusion either tonight or early tomorrow morning?
Well, what stands out to me the most is the strategist working with Lee there, and you have an opportunity to hear in real time with a real game scenario, what is this guy going to do? Because this will happen. I mean, it's unavoidable. Doesn't matter how good you are, you will be put in a situation where you're down 14, 3rd and 10, or 4th and 5. In the middle of the third quarter, what are you doing? Are you punting? It's just it's a very difficult situation to be in. And so the fact that they simulated that, I think Stats Matt said something about it in the comments, but it's very interesting that they really put these guys through the ringer. It also tells me that they really were not kidding. They saw this year and they said this can't happen again. They put all hands on deck. Everybody was there, and I know a lot of people probably assumed this was a Ballard Irsay, Carly Irsay thing. Oh, no. Every leader, before they make a big decision, even the president included, they need a cabinet. They need a staff. They need a delegated staff that helps bounce ideas around. And this is exactly what happened. And it happened mostly with Ballard. I know Irsay was kind of like giving his blessing or whatnot. But it also tells me Jim Irsay realizes that he meddled a little too much and he can correct his mistakes. And I think you're starting to see the Irsay of old, where he's a great owner who sits back and lets the people that he trusts and hired do the work. So bravo to the Colts for following through with the process. Bravo with getting a great candidate. And I think they nailed it. I really do. Good job.
Right. And I would agree there. It seems like Irsay really did take a step back. They saw how thorough this process was. They wanted to get the right guy. He didn't act on his impulses. He trusted the people running his search. And here's the thing. He, as he always says, he hires his football people to do their football jobs, and that's exactly what he did. So, as Steve said, think we got the normal Irsay back. I think that's a good. I think normal in quotes there. I think that says it perfectly. Steve Stats Matt said the analytics department was interesting, and yeah, that definitely was the most interesting part for me. Chad says really wanted to get it right, and that it puts a little respect back in Irsay for doing this right and getting a good head coach. 100% agree. And then Isaac, I'm probably the only Colts fan in New Zealand. So we've got somebody from across the globe tuning into the show. Isaac, we love that you're here. Great to see you, buddy. Welcome to the show. So that was kind of the hiring process. Now let's get into what you guys all want to talk about, the potential staff options under Shane Steichen. So Drake and I are going to go through a list of candidates for each position, talk about specifically the offensive side of the ball where most of the coaching changes are probably going to happen. I'm going to talk about defense, special teams. We got it all covered for you here. So the probably one of the ones that's going to be the higher profile ones is the offensive coordinator under Shane Steichen. And a lot of times what coaches do is guys they've worked with in the past, that's who they're going to bring along to fill these positions. So it happens all around the league this way. And I would probably say that Steichen and his staff is going to be no different. So let's go ahead and start it out. But first, Chad, everyone, don't forget to subscribe and like. It helps these guys out and allows them to take the time to drop this knowledge and debate. Big fan of the podcast. Chad, we salute you, brother. You're always a loyal listener. So let's dive right in, Drake. Offensive coordinator. Who are some of the candidates that you think will be considered? And honestly, give me a favorite of the candidates. I know you've got 3 candidates here. Who is your favorite that you would like to see as the next offensive coordinator for the Colts?
Well, I mean, I really do like Pep Hamilton. I know that there's a lot of, kind of maybe a little bit of sludge that gets thrown around with his name, but keep in mind it wasn't a proper, I don't think it was a proper roster around Andrew Luck. Okay. So it wasn't always the easiest to probably coach even a superstar. But to me, who really stands out is Kevin Patullo. He has experience with the Chiefs, with the Bills, with the Titans, with the Jets, with the Colts, actually, from 18 to 20, and with the Eagles. And the reason that I really like Patullo is because he has been assisting Steichen in developing Jalen Hurts. And this is a guy that, again, was not supposed to be able to pass the ball very well. But with the two-headed monster like Steichen and Patullo, I mean, you've got a seriously talented duo there. 2 great offensive minds that both worked together to develop a quarterback who was a run first guy and just put up 300 freaking yards on the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. So, I mean, this is a guy that knows exactly how to develop a guy like Jalen Hurts, mixed with a guy who has developed Phillip Rivers, Justin Herbert, and Jalen Hurts. So to me, that's the guy that stands out. I also, one of the wild cards, though, is Anthony Lynn. So he's currently the 49ers running backs coach and put that running game on helped put that running game on notice for the NFL. Been coaching since 2000. He's got head coaching experience. And actually that head coaching experience is when Steichen was underneath him as the quarterbacks coach for the Chargers when he was commanding the team. I believe it was from 17 to 19 or from 17 to 20. So those are 2 candidates that stand out. But, man, the favorite for me is Patullo. I think that would just be a grand slam for the Colts.
Yeah, and I'm right there with you. Stats Matt says Patullo is probably the favorite, and honestly, I would probably agree there. So looking at Patullo, he was with the Eagles with Steichen for the past 2 seasons as the Eagles pass game coordinator, and the thing is, Patullo has experience with the Indianapolis Colts. He was a part of Frank Reich's staff. He was with the Colts from 2018 to 2020 as the wide receivers coach and a pass game specialist. So he's a guy I think he's 41 years old, so he's about the same age as Steichen. They get along very well with one another, and I think that because of his roots as the assistant or as the pass game coordinator with the Eagles, really that next step up would be to be an offensive coordinator. So a lot of people say that he could be in play for the Eagles offensive coordinator position. If I had to bet, I think that goes to Bryant Johnson, their quarterbacks coach. But I think Kevin Patullo, with his familiarity with Steichen and with him being with the Colts previously, they have that relationship with him. I think he's probably the favorite. Pep Hamilton, like you mentioned, he was with the Colts from 2013 to 2015 as the offensive coordinator. I think there's a chance he comes back, but I think it is a little bit weird that maybe since he was fired, I don't know if the Colts would necessarily want to go back to him. I do think that, as Stats Matt was saying, probably as a quarterback coach would be a better fit for Pep Hamilton rather than an offensive coordinator position. But I think there is a chance that that does happen. And then you gave the wild card of Anthony Lynn. I'm going to give the wild card of Scott Turner, the Raiders pass game coordinator, who was the Washington Commanders offensive coordinator for the past 3 seasons. So the reason I put this is he was with Steichen in 2013 with the Browns as a wide receivers coach when Steichen was the offensive quality control coach. And Steichen's mentor is his father, Norv Turner. When they were together there with the Chargers. So Scott and him have a relationship. Steichen always talks about how Norv Turner influences him. So I could kind of see that as a wild card there. So David asks, have they signed Steichen yet? They have not. Earlier in the episode, we said that the plane that Steichen was on, Jim Irsay's private jet, just landed in Indianapolis. So Steichen is there. He's going to meet with Irsay and Chris Ballard and probably get a deal done later tonight. So we'll have to watch that. Nathan asks, will Reggie Wayne be back as the wide receivers coach? We'll tackle this one now just because we're not going to cover wide receiver coach tonight, because I think Reggie Wayne will be back. Reggie Wayne is still under contract next year, so Shane Steichen would have to they would have to make a decision to move on and let him out of the contract. But I think Wayne did a good job with those wide receivers last year, and I think he would be one of the only coaches on the offensive side of the ball to be retained under Steichen.
Well, and Wayne did not have the year to develop those receivers like I'm sure he wanted to. In fact, at one time, I think he did an interview where he goes, at the start of the season, I didn't have these bags under my eyes. Like, so it's like he definitely didn't have the consistency going on around him. But I agree. I think that he did as good a job as you can with a rookie tight end, with a rookie receiver in Pierce, with a guy who essentially was playing really his first full year in Paris Campbell. Okay. And he had a career year. So I want to see what Reggie Wayne can do with Shane Steichen, with potentially Kevin Patullo or Turner as an offensive coordinator, a revamped system, and a guy who just understands how to get receivers the ball by setting up the run. And with a fresh name at quarterback, I want to see what Wayne can do. And I think the sky's the limit, honestly, because we're talking about who should be a Hall of Fame wide receiver right now.
Right. And Stats Matt says if Patullo ends up as offensive coordinator in Philly, Brian Johnson better be hired tomorrow. And I think the Colts would love to have the chance at that as well. Logan Schmidt, good friend of the show. Good to see you, man. Glad you could join us. We'll do one more quick question before we move into the offensive line coach, which I think could be the most important coach that the Colts hire. Ricky says, do you think that Coach Steichen will be his own offensive coordinator and call the plays himself? Now, I do think that Steichen will call the plays. I do think that will happen unless he does want to delegate it, but he's shown that he is good. He's a good play caller. Now, as far as him being his own offensive coordinator, offensive coordinators do a lot more than just call the plays. They're heavily involved with the game plan. They're heavily involved in getting the passing game all set up, or the running game all set up, going through the red zone calls. It's a collaborative effort. So just because the offensive coordinator doesn't call the plays, it doesn't mean he's not doing anything. He is still heavily involved there. But let's kind of move on to the offensive line position. And Nico says that Roy Istvan for offensive line coach, please. Steve saying the assistant offensive line coach from Philly as well, please. We're gonna dive into it because I think that is the favorite for Drake and I is Roy Istvan. So Drake, give me your candidates for the offensive line, and let's start with Istvan.
Well, man, that's my top candidate, and it's very simple. I mean, the guy joined. I mean, he joined the Eagles in 2019 under current offensive line coach Jeff Stoutland. Now, I know everyone was like, "Oh man, let's get him." Look, man, Istvan is just fine, and the fact that he has the experience with that offensive line, he knows exactly how to get lanes open for running backs. Again, we saw Miles Sanders with a 1,250-yard season, and he looked like completely unstoppable. But as we've said multiple times on this show, Stoutland and Istvan were able to get schemes where they could open up lanes for that were truckloads wide. I mean, at times it looked like it was impossible to even get anybody down within the first 3 to 4 yards before you're making contact. And with this Colts offensive line, look, I'm going to say it again, they are not as far off as you think. They've got Bernard Raymond, who is he played like a stud. And if you push Will Fries and you potentially bring in, I think it's Samalo from the Eagles, if you bring him with Steichen, you truly make either him or Fries get that right guard position. Boy, you can address those issues, and you've got two guys that know how to get an offensive line to its prime performance and an awesome three-headed monster at the running back position for the Colts. So I think he's perfect. But I also, our own Zach Hicks had put in one of his pieces, George Warhop, who's a little bit of an outlier, but this is a former Houston offensive line or Houston Texans offensive line coach. And the reason that he sticks out so much, yeah, he's had ups and downs, but the guy's been an offensive line coach since 96. He's done nothing else. 27 straight years, this guy's been coaching offensive linemen. So for no other reason than ridiculous experience, I mean, I think he would also be a halfway decent fit.
Yeah, and I'm right there with you. So Camden, good to see you, buddy. We always love when you join in on the show. But yeah, I think it's got to be Roy Istvan. I think he's the leader in the clubhouse, and I think you can probably lock that in as who the next offensive line coach would be for the Colts. So Istvan was there with Steichen for his 2 years with the Eagles. He's been with the Eagles since 2019, and here's the thing: he's only been in the NFL since 2019, but he has 33 years of coaching experience, whether it's on the offensive line or other different coaching positions in football. That means a lot. With Steichen, again, Steichen's only 37 years old. Yes, he's done great things as a coach, but he's still young as a coach as well. So having some more experienced coaches on the staff with him, like a Roy Istvan, like a Gus Bradley, who we're going to talk about in a little bit, guys that have been in coaching for 20 plus years, that's certainly going to help. It's something that he can lean on as they move forward with this. So yeah, I would think Roy Istvan is going to be the pick. I think that Chris Ballard and Jim Irsay know how important it is that the offensive line get back to prominence. So don't be surprised if Istvan gets a pretty fat check from Jim Irsay to come over and join the staff. But yeah, I would say Istvan is number one, and then the Texans' former offensive line coach George Warhop, like I said, was with Steichen in 2013 with the Browns, and he's been coaching offensive line since 1996. I was 2 years old when he entered the NFL, so he's been doing it for a long time. So now those are probably the candidates for the offensive line. But as we've seen, this offensive line was in shambles to start the year. It did start to come back, but I think getting an offensive line coach that can return this group to prominence and worthy of being the highest paid offensive line in the NFL, that's going to be key, not only for the success for Shane Steichen and this Colts offense moving forward, but for that rookie quarterback that they're going to be bringing in as well once the draft is over. So, and of course, every time Danielle Moore, we're only throwing up my crying face a little bit, but it's becoming a
did that
joke
yesterday
now.
too.
It's becoming a joke on this podcast. I really wish my wife would just change that picture. Please stop just roasting me on
After
here.
the show, just simply, can you please change the picture?
Right. I mean, for the love of God, it's almost Valentine's Day. I take that as a gift. But here's something that StatsMatt said. I never knew they crossed paths. Eugene Chung deserves a job. That would be an interesting one on the offensive line as well. It's a dark horse candidate, I would say. And honestly, we weren't going to talk about this one next. We were going to continue going on the offensive side of the ball, but I see a lot of people talking about Gus Bradley in the chat. Chad saying Bradley is still up in the air, and StatsMatt says that Bradley is 99% back.
Two ends of the spectrum there.
Right. And I'm here to tell you, Gus Bradley will be the defensive coordinator for the Indianapolis Colts in 2023. Gus Bradley and Shane Steichen have a very good working relationship with one another. They worked 4 years together there in the San Diego, Los Angeles Chargers days. And Steichen was one of the candidates that said he would like to bring Gus Bradley back for that defensive staff. So I expect Gus Bradley to be back. I expect Nate Ollie, the defensive line coach, to be back, who really did a number and really helped this defensive line to play a lot better than we've seen in the years for the Indianapolis Colts with that attacking front. So I would see him back. Richard Smith, the linebackers coach, should be back. Ron Milas, the defensive backs coach, should be back. I fully expect this entire defensive staff for the Indianapolis Colts to return in 2024 and continue. 2023 and continue to build on what they did in 2022.
Well, and I absolutely love that take, because there's no way that if I'm Steichen personally, that I look at the defensive staff for the Colts, especially knowing Bradley as well as I do, what is wrong? There's nothing wrong. Everything's set up right there, ready to go. They played very well. They played great under Bradley. Each one of those positions, I thought, were the highlight of the entire year for the team. And as we've said multiple times over and over again, those not many wins, but those 4 wins oftentimes came down to defensive stops. So, I mean, I think that's a great situation. I will say that there was one name that was very interesting that I think was the darkest of dark horses, but Eric Henderson from the Rams, who's a defensive line coach. He did have experience with Steichen and the Chargers. And obviously we know what a wrecking machine that Rams defensive line is. But I really do think that Gus Bradley is a lock. And I don't really see, like you said, any position coach from the defense moving at all. I think they're all staying right there so Steichen can hire his offensive staff and be done with it. Focus on the combine, focus on the draft, and just, have that behind you.
If it was Raheem Morris that was the new head coach for the Colts, I could see Eric Henderson being the defensive coordinator, or else he would be the defensive coordinator for the Rams. But Bradley is going to be staying with Steichen on board. And then just to kind of cap off, I think this is a great point by Nico to cap off the conversation on the offensive line. Super Bowl proved how important the offensive line is. Even the great Mahomes couldn't win with a bad O-line versus Tampa. Chiefs upgraded the line, now held the defensive line of the Eagles in check and won the game. Offensive line needs to be fixed with Istvan and additional pieces. Otherwise, the new quarterback will be slaughtered. Absolutely right, Nico. And that's why I would expect the Colts to place a premium on Roy Istvan, and we could see some changes along the offensive line. They definitely need to get competition at left tackle for Bernard Raymond, even though I think Bernard Raymond will prove to be a franchise left tackle. They definitely need to settle right guard and then look at center. Ryan Kelly hasn't played well the past couple years. That could be a cut candidate. We'll have to see once we get into the season. So we'll answer this one real quick. Unboxing Mania says, hey guys, would love Steichen to be the Colts new head coach. Any updates updates on Jimmy's plane location. Did they arrive in Indy yet? Yes. The plane arrived with Shane Steichen in Indianapolis just a few minutes before we went live at 7 p.m. Eastern time. So I would expect either it's going to be late tonight or it's going to be early in the morning. We'll get an announcement that Shane Steichen has signed a deal to be the next head coach of the Indianapolis Colts. And Stats Matt is on watch for that in case it does break. But let's move it along to the quarterback coach. I think this one could be fun. This one could be a lot of fun. And of course, this guy is going to be working hand in hand with that rookie top 5 quarterback that the Colts are going to take in this year's draft. Drake, give me some guys that you'd like to see as the quarterback coach, or that could be possibilities in 2023.
Well, I'll save the one that I want to see for last, but the guy that I do think is a possibility, and it's strictly because of the ridiculous amount of experience he has, and that's Mike Sullivan. He's been coaching in the NFL since 2002, currently is the QB coach for the Steelers, and you're talking about a guy who helped Kenny Pickett, all right, play well enough to dang near make the playoffs. And again, a 9-8 record. I don't think Mike Tomlin's ever had a losing season. So props to him for doing that. Wide receivers coach for the Giants from 04 to 09. QB's coach for the Giants for Eli Manning in 10 and 11 and 15. And the offensive coordinator in 16, 17. Offensive coordinator for the Buccaneers for 2 years in 2012 and 13. QB's coach for both the Broncos and currently for the Steelers. So I think he's got an absolute wealth of experience working with every type of quarterback he can, including a rookie who the Colts will have. But my choice is a man who I actually have a jersey of right there, and that's Phillip Rivers. All right. So I want Philly Rivs on the Colts sideline, coaching right there with Steichen. I personally think he would be an absolutely fantastic quarterback coach, especially with the way he was able to work his kind of noodle arm into a ridiculous 24 touchdowns, 11 interceptions his last season, being a statue. This guy understands how to develop a quarterback because he was very young, kind of getting into the starting way of things in his career. So that would just be awesome for me. So I definitely would love to see Phillip Rivers.
Yeah, and the thing is, guys, Drake is saying Phillip Rivers, and you might think that's some smoke and that's some wishful thinking. Phillip Rivers, I can tell you, is being considered for the quarterback coach of the Indianapolis Colts. And this is why. Phillip Rivers, number one, he's still beloved in that building by Chris Ballard, by Jim Irsay, and by many of the teammates that he had just a couple years ago. He would be a home run hire in that locker room and for that team. And then number two, Shane Steichen and Phillip Rivers are very, very close. I mean, Rivers was with Steichen for 2011, 2012, and then from 2014 through 2019. So that's what we're talking 6-8 years together. They were coached. Steichen was with Rivers, and Rivers said publicly that they think a lot alike. So if Rivers is looking to jump from high school to the NFL rather than going from like what Jeff Saturday did to going straight to head coach, he can kind of build his way up, start as a quarterback coach, and I think getting a guy in a mind like Phillip Rivers at that quarterback coach, I think that would be stellar for the Colts. So I don't know if he's necessarily the favorite, but he's someone that the Colts are considering and that Steichen has on his short list of candidates for that offensive line quarterback coach position. I saw Stats Matt saying Pep Hamilton to be the QB coach. That's certainly an option.
Yeah.
Definitely, if he's out of the running for the offensive coordinator, he could accept the quarterback coach. And then we're going to talk about one more guy, Alex Tanney, the assistant quarterback coach for the Eagles. So again, if Brian Johnson, the Eagles quarterback coach, gets a promotion, it could be very easy for Tanney to take over as the head quarterbacks coach. But he was with Steichen for 2 years. He was an offensive quality control coach to the assistant quarterback coach. And Tanney played in the NFL from 2012 to 2020. He was mostly a practice squad guy. Didn't really play too much live ball. But fun fact, he was actually with the Colts on the practice squad in 2015. So just a kind of a nugget there. But I know people would get excited to see old man Rivers back in a Colts, not necessarily Colts uniform, but wearing Colts gear on the sidelines. And yes, but way better picture from my wife there.
Oh yeah.
Us looking fantastic on our wedding day. But yeah, I really think that would be a pretty awesome get for the Colts to have Philip Rivers on the sidelines. Eric says the fact they haven't announced this is giving me a heart attack. Why? This is exactly what the NFL wants. Eric, it's probably because the Colts just landed in Indianapolis with Shane Steichen probably about a half hour ago. So I would say that they're just now getting into the facility to kind of start working things through and get that deal done. So don't have a heart attack quite yet. I really believe this isn't going to be a Josh McDaniels situation.
Yeah, no.
But the Colts have been burned once before. They're not going to announce anything until that contract is fully signed. Nico says that he would love to see Philip Rivers back. Sarah, I love Philip Rivers as the quarterback coach. Larry says, hopefully, nomadic Brian, cry me a Rivers.
Love it.
So if it's Rivers, how would he do with Stroud, or would he prefer Levis? I think Philip Rivers would work with any quarterback.
Yep.
I will say this, that it's probably going to be Stroud or Levis for the Colts. And we're going to talk about quarterbacks. This isn't the episode because it'll take us hours to talk about the quarterback position, and that's what these next few weeks are going to, or the next few months are going to be about. Rivers would be so interesting, especially if they're going after a prospect like Richardson. Talk about opposite ends of the spectrum. So it would be kind of different. Wyatt Law, good to see you, buddy. He said hadn't even thought about Rivers, and dag gummit, we get plenty of dag gummits over there on the sidelines. But let's kind of talk about the last head coach on this list that we're going to mention today, and that's Bubba Ventrone. I mean, he interviewed for the Colts head coaching position. He's obviously not going to get it. So is Bubba Ventrone going to be back with the Colts in 2023, Drake?
Oh, I don't think there's any chance that he's not going to be. When you, again, I think we said this yesterday for the breaking news episode, but when you were able to take Dallas Flowers, all right, and you were able to make him the most efficient returner. I don't know. I can't remember if it was kicks or punts, but he led the NFL in yards per return. And so that's a guy who at any given moment has lightning in a bottle tendencies. And Bubba Ventrone maximized his talent. Well, guess what? He's also maximized the Colts efficiency and improved every single year he's coached the special teams. I think the Colts need to give him a little bit of a pay bump and just secure him there at the special teams coordinator position, because it's not long until he's doing assistant head coaching and maybe even offensive coordinating or eventually running his own team. I know that at the time Irsay overstepped Ballard, but listen, Ballard wanted him as the interim head coach. All right, so this is a guy who's a natural born leader. I think that since he's not going to get a head coaching position with us or with the Colts or anyone else, I think they need to keep him at special teams. I don't think there's any question. I think Steichen wants him.
So my educated guess on all this and just talking to people in the know is that Bubba Ventrone will be back with the Colts next year, but you can expect a promotion for Bubba Ventrone. I see him, and as I'd seen other people in the chat talking about, I would expect Bubba Ventrone to be the assistant head coach next year for the Indianapolis Colts while still maintaining his special teams coordinator position. So he'd get a little bit more responsibility. He'd get a higher pay raise, but this would help push Bubba Ventrone, who the Colts think so highly of. It would help in them keeping him, and it would push him and get him into a better light for his prospective head coaching opportunities down the line, maybe even as soon as next year. So I would expect that to be what happens with Bubba Ventrone, them giving him a raise next year, upgrading him to assistant head coach under Shane Steichen, kind of being Shane Steichen's number two guy in a sense. And then kind of going from there. But yes, I would absolutely do see Bubba Ventrone returning, and he would be the one to be that assistant or associate head coach. Wyatt Law is saying, is John Fox still around? Yes, John Fox is still on the staff as a senior defensive assistant. Jim Gibson, my guy, good to see you, buddy. Bubba would be awesome in a higher position with the offense. Such a great prep guy. Absolutely. Yes, he is. And that's why I think the Colts, they think Chris Ballard especially thinks so highly of Bubba Ventrone. They don't want to lose him. They want to make sure they keep him happy, and they want to show that they appreciate him. Even though he's not getting the head coaching gig now, I think he will get that associate head coach or assistant head coach title associated with his name. We'll do one more question real quick before we do a little bit of a Super Bowl recap. Probably no chance, but what about Luck as quarterback coach? No, it's not happening. Andrew Luck,
maybe later, not maybe not for us.
Andrew
But
Luck has
yeah,
zero interest in returning to the NFL at any moment
yeah.
as of right now. So we'll have
Appreciate the
to
question
see
though.
on that. Yeah, great question.
Good question.
Taryn asked, did you guys touch on Wayne? Yes, I would say that Wayne will be back as the wide receivers coach. Unless Steichen wants to move on, Reggie Wayne is still under contract. And Taryn, letting us know we're pushing 100 live viewers. We really appreciate you guys all tuning
Thank you.
in. The growth of this show has just been phenomenal, and it's all because of you guys. So let's keep this thing rolling because we're going to rock it all off season. So let's talk about the Super Bowl real quick, and then we'll let you guys get on with your Monday evening. Kind of get on Shane Steichen watch with us here. So great game last night. The Chiefs won 38-35. It was a close game all night. We saw the quarterbacks duking it out between one another. Drake, just give me your general thoughts on the game real quick, and then kind of touch on Shane Steichen's performance. I know I was paying attention pretty closely to that, and you even wrote a piece about it. So let's talk about the game. Talk about Steichen. Let's talk about the Super Bowl, brother.
Look, but first off, both offenses absolutely lit each other's defenses up. All right. And Patrick Mahomes was out there doing his one-legged jump around thing, but still somehow is just completely unstoppable. So you got to see, as you have with Mahomes and Allen, Mahomes versus Burrow. Well, you got to see it on the NFC side of things. And Jalen Hurts under Shane Steichen, they destroyed that ground game that makes the Eagles so powerful. And you would think, no way are they going to beat the Chiefs if Hurts has to go out there and air it out. That didn't matter. Threw for over 300 yards. He threw for over 120 yards more than Mahomes did. And he also ran for 70 yards on the ground. He had 374 yards by himself and 4 freaking touchdowns. Shane Steichen is very much responsible, not entirely. Obviously, he's had the coaches that we've talked about that he would probably bring in that have helped with that development. But I think it was, Kevin Patullo helped a lot with that. But look, I thought that even in a losing effort, okay, if they win that game, Hurts is the MVP first off. And the fact that you can light up the Chiefs like that so efficiently when they take away your number one MO to success, that tells me this man knows how to adjust on the fly. He knows how to get the absolute best out of his quarterback. Man, what a game. What a showing from Shane Steichen. And I think even though they lost, I think every single Colts fan out there that watched that game, you should be incredibly excited for what this guy's going to bring this team.
Stats Matt saying Hurts was easy MVP before they lost. As far as Edward Grant, Hurts should have been the MVP anyways over Patrick Mahomes.
It's happened before.
It has.
Yeah.
Logan Schmidt says, I wanted us to draft Hurts, should get a scouting job because of that. Logan, you should pass that along to Chris Ballard. Maybe he'll give you even an internship. That would be cool to see. Tom Brady, a very good Super Bowl would have been a lot better if I was playing, but whatever, just untrue. Just go away. Go away, Tom Brady.
Enjoy retirement.
Enjoy retirement. Like, sit on the beach. Just take your underwear pics, post them to the gram. I know what you've been doing out there.
Have your sand that you retired. Remember that the sand sold for like $90,000.
Exactly. So Nico saying, I think Mahomes will end up as a top 5 quarterback in history when he hangs it up in 10 plus years. I would say that's a pretty good bet. But yeah, I think it was a great game. Really great game on both sides. We saw the magic of Patrick Mahomes. And this is what I was saying last week when our preview episode of this, I was like, man, the Eagles have probably the better team all around, but you can't bet against Patrick Mahomes. And Patrick Mahomes put the team on his back when it mattered most and led the Chiefs to another Super Bowl victory. So, I mean, Patrick Mahomes was drafted in 2017. He's been the starter since 2018. So in 5 years as the starter, he has 2 Super Bowl victories, 2 MVPs. Patrick Mahomes is on his way. He's on his way definitely to a Hall of Fame career and possibly being the greatest quarterback of all time. So, and he's such a likable guy too. Unlike our buddy Tom Brady, who was accused of cheating and all the other things. So, but yeah, I mean, good for Mahomes. And then just to touch on Shane Steichen before we get out of here, Tez, good to see you, buddy. But yeah, Shane Steichen. Eagles had 417 total yards, 4 touchdowns on that Chiefs defense. Absolute clinic running the ball. Jalen Hurts had a great time passing the ball. It wasn't on the offense. The offense did their job. scoring 35 points. Jalen Hurts had a fumble that was returned for a touchdown. That was probably pretty much their only big blunder that they had. But looking at that performance that Shane Steichen put together, I think safe to say Colts fans can probably feel very, very good about themselves and the head coach that they are getting. And as Jim Gibson says, how big does that Hurts fumble return touchdown look at the end of the game?
Yep.
Huge.
Yeah.
Huge.
Yep.
Absolutely. So that's going to be our show for the night. You guys were amazing. We topped out over 100 live viewers. I think at the top was either 104 or 106. Thank you so much to Jim, Taryn, Christian, Tez, Stats Matt as always, Nico, Logan, Tom Brady, Sarah, Chad, Wyatt Law. I could go on and on. Nathan, Freddie, Matthew, Nomadic Brian. You guys, if I missed you, I'm sorry. My beautiful wife, Danielle, thank you so much for just killing it with us. And it's only going to keep climbing. This Horseshoe Huddle is taking off. This podcast is taking off. So come on for the ride. So go ahead. And like I said, every episode, please, if you enjoy us, go ahead and follow us on all the things and spread the word for us. Go ahead and like Horseshoe Huddle on Facebook. Follow Horseshoe Huddle on Twitter at Colts on FN. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Hit that bell so you know whenever we're going live. And hey, as soon as we go over 1,000 subscribers, I'm shaving my head, not just for the episode, but for good. The Chrome Dome will be alive and well. So really great episode tonight from all you guys. Hope you all enjoyed it. Drake, what are you working on, man? Go follow D Walster Drake on Twitter. And Drake, what are some of the things that the people can expect you to be writing on the site over the next week or so?
Well, very, very briefly, I was on in the chat there, Taryn's trivia show, and we went over who was the only man to win a Super Bowl for a losing team. That was Chuck Howley, all right, from the Cowboys. So go look that up. But I wrote a piece on obviously Shane Steichen showcasing his offensive brilliance in a losing effort. But all I can say is we will be me and Andrew especially, will be putting out a ridiculous amount of pieces, especially now that the coach is in Indianapolis, and at any time you'll hear him hired. So just be watching the Horseshoe Huddle for a bunch of great content and articles coming up.
Absolutely. I put out a piece on Sunday that details all about Shane Steichen's background, what the Colts were impressed about him. As soon as the news leaked, that went up on the site. So if you haven't yet, go check that out. I'm going to be writing a little bit on kind of maybe the introductory press conference. I'll give my analysis on that. And then some free agents that could possibly be following Shane Steichen to Indy. So keep an eye out for that later this week. So if you want to follow me, go ahead and follow at Andrew Moore NFL on Twitter. And we will be back on Thursday night to break down more Shane Steichen and more Indianapolis Colts talk. So until then, guys, thank you so much and enjoy your evening.